Hello, everyone, and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. Before that, here's a look at the latest headlines. The White House says China now faces tariffs as high as 245% on certain imports to the United States due to Beijing's retaliatory actions. A court in Peru sentences former President Ollanta Humala to 15 years in prison in a corruption scandal. Humala's wife, who is also convicted in the case, seeks asylum in Brazil. Hamas says it has lost contact with the captors of an Israeli-American hostage in Gaza following an Israeli strike on their location. Poland reports more than 2,000 cyber attacks every day from Russia, just a month ahead of its presidential election. And one of the world's most remote countries, Tuvalu, gets its first ever ATM in a historic shift to electric banking. We begin in the United States, where President Donald Trump says he now wants to deport some violent criminals who are U.S. citizens to El Salvador. In a recent interview, Trump praised El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele for building a mega prison to make his country safe. The commander-in-chief also floated the idea of, during Bukele's visit to the White House on Monday, suggesting American criminals could be jailed in El Salvador's notorious prison.
All for it, because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in.
President Trump's latest attempt comes days after his team sent hundreds of alleged Venezuelan gangsters to the El Salvadoran prison. The mega prison is currently at the center of a controversy involving illegal migrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was mistakenly deported by the Trump administration. Last month, Garcia was put on a plane and sent to El Salvador despite a 2019 ruling barring his deportation. On Monday, President Bukele said he would not return Garcia to the United States. Meanwhile, President Trump on Tuesday also offered money and airplane tickets to any illegal migrant who wants to leave the U.S. voluntarily. The president added that self-deportees will have the prospect of re-entering the country later legally.
What we want to do is we're going to have a self-deportation program, which we haven't even announced yet. I guess I'm announcing it to you. Why
yes.
not, Rachel? Here it is. The only thing I haven't determined is what are we going to do? We're going to give them a stipend. We're going to give them some money and a plane ticket. And then we're going to work with them. If they're good, if we want them back in, we're going to work with them to get them back in as quickly as we can.
Now, this comes after President Trump suggested in a cabinet meeting that undocumented migrants working on farms and in hotels would be allowed to leave the U.S. and then return legally only if their employers vouched for them. Now, as the president tests his legal limits, only time will tell if his efforts help him achieve the largest deportation in American history. And staying in the United States, Republican congresswoman from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, hosted a town hall in suburban Atlanta on Tuesday to express her full support for the Trump administration. However, the event soon deteriorated into chaos after some non-supporters began yelling and jeering at her. Greene had barely reached the podium to speak when a man in the crowd stood up and booed her. Immediately after, police grabbed him, dragged him out of the room, and tased him with a stun gun.
Well, welcome everyone. Stop. Thank you.
However, an unfazed Greene greeted her supporters who clapped and cheered for her and suggested those protesting were Democrats brainwashed by news consumption.
Democrats have been rioting. They are the party of violence. They are the party that... Go. 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 If you want to sit and listen, you're welcome to listen. Everyone across the aisle.
But minutes later, the police again had to remove and use a stun gun on a second man who jeered at the congresswoman.
This is a peaceful town hall. Now, this is a peaceful town hall, ladies and gentlemen. This should not have to happen. This is a town hall. So I'd like to start with our first video because I think these are some very wise words from the most popular Democrat president in history. Kayla?
Greene carried on with her town hall over the next hour, hailing the Elon Musk-led Department of Government Efficiency and playing clips of herself. However, disruptions continued with police officers escorting 6 people out of the room, of whom 3 were arrested. Protesters escorted out of the venue said Greene's event was more of a political rally than a town hall. Several hundred protesters also gathered outside waving signs that read pro-America, anti-Trump. And while the chaotic town hall raised questions about whether the use of tasers on protesters was out of line, Greene praised the law enforcement officials. Greene is a longtime ally of President Donald Trump and is also considered a Republican firebrand. She's considering running for Georgia governor or for the U.S. Senate next year. However, she has yet to make public moves towards the highly competitive races. And staying in the United States, a major conflict has escalated between President Donald Trump's administration and some of the nation's top universities, including Harvard, Columbia, Yale, and Princeton. The White House announced it would freeze more than $2.2 billion in federal funding to Harvard University after the school rejected a list of demands from the government to combat anti-Semitism on campus. The White House, in its 10-point letter, demanded the university start reporting students hostile to American values, increasing viewpoint diversity in departments, hiring external government-approved auditors, checking faculty for plagiarism, and taking disciplinary actions against protesters.
We have informed the administration through our legal counsel that we will not accept their proposed agreement. No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue.
Following Harvard's rejection, the White House press secretary Carolyn Leavitt said the president wanted the university to apologize for what his administration says is continuing tolerance of anti-Semitism.
Sure. First, when it comes to Harvard, as I said, the president has been quite clear they must follow federal law. He also wants to see Harvard apologize, and Harvard should apologize for the egregious anti-Semitism that took place on their college campus against Jewish American students. The university failed to impose formal discipline on any students for this anti-Semitic conduct violations, including the occupation of a campus building and the disruption of classes with bullhorn.
Now, not just Harvard, but this conflict is part of a wider crackdown involving at least 7 universities. After the Trump administration demands, Columbia University also agreed to a few of them, including banning face masks during protests, restricting demonstrations inside academic buildings, and reviewing its Middle East Studies programs. Columbia, however, also expressed its intention to defend academic freedoms while continuing negotiations with the government. Meanwhile, former President Barack Obama voiced his support for Harvard. In a public statement, the former president praised Harvard for rejecting what he called an unlawful attempt to stifle academic freedom.
Harvard has set an example for other higher ed institutions, rejecting an unlawful and ham-handed attempt to stifle academic freedom, while taking concrete steps to make sure all students at Harvard can benefit from an environment of intellectual inquiry, rigorous debate, and mutual respect. Let's hope other institutions follow suit.
The Trump administration's task force has already frozen over or canceled over $11 billion in federal funding and revoked visas for more than 300 students, postdocs, and recent graduates involved in campus protests. So as the standoff continues, the Trump administration's next move and how universities will respond remains uncertain. And it seems this battle for control over campus policies and federal funding is far from over. And picking up where we left off, leaving the United States for Canada is no longer just about lifestyle. In fact, it's quickly becoming a strategic move for students. As President Donald Trump's administration slashes federal university funding, including canceling foreign student visas, American and international students in the U.S. are searching for alternatives. Canadian universities like the University of British Columbia, the University of Toronto, and the University of Waterloo are seeing a sharp rise in applications and interest from across the border. But with strict international student caps in Canada, not everyone will find a place. Our next report brings you more on what's driving this academic migration.
With rising tensions around higher education in the United States, eyes are turning north. Canadian universities are witnessing a sharp rise in interest from US-based students. And a series of controversial moves by the Trump administration have triggered this unexpected shift. Now, since President Donald Trump took charge, federal funding cuts and visa cancellations have hit US universities hard. Trump's policies targeted foreign students, revoking visas and increasing surveillance. In fact, a new US government center is also deployed to monitor the international students' social media activity. This crackdown has sparked fear and uncertainty on US campuses. Many international students face deportation for protest involvement, and hundreds of other student visas were abruptly cancelled. Hence, concerns over academic freedom and free speech have since escalated. Now, amid this climate, Canadian universities are becoming a preferred choice. The University of British Columbia's Vancouver campus reported record figures. Graduate applications from US citizens jumped by 27% as of March 1st. The University of Toronto, which is known as Canada's largest university, also noticed a meaningful increase this year. It received more US applications by its January deadline for 2025 programs. Meanwhile, the University of Waterloo saw growing campus activity. US visitor numbers rose by 15%, and its renowned technical and engineering programs drew particular attention.
That, as a result, and especially as a result of the very recent crackdown on visas in the United States for international students, and now the development of a center that's reading foreign students' social media accounts.
While graduate numbers surge, undergraduate interest is slower to grow. UBC reported only a 2% rise in undergraduate applications. However, US campus tour requests rose by 20%, suggesting growing curiosity. According to UBC's annual report, the United States remains crucial. It consistently ranks among the top 3 sources for international students. Currently, about 1,500 US students are enrolled across UBC's campuses. But while Canadian universities opened their doors, limits remain. Canada's Immigration Ministry placed a cap on international student admissions. This is the second year the cap has restricted numbers. Universities must admit only as many students as they can support. Housing availability and resources factor into these decisions. In fact, provinces and territories also decide how to distribute limited spaces. Despite these restrictions, demand continues rising steadily. Canadian universities appear better positioned to accommodate displaced students. Although applications grow, the number of available places tightens. With Canada's universities growing in popularity and spaces limited, one question lingers. Who will claim those coveted spots next?
And we end today's show about luxury bags carefully handcrafted in China. Turns out your quote-unquote made in Italy luxury handbag might have more ties to Chinese factories than to Tuscany. Thanks to viral TikToks from Chinese factory workers, the internet is now in a frenzy over claims that some of the most iconic designer bags are actually born in the East, just wearing a Western disguise. As tariff tensions tighten and TikTok truth bombs explode, the question remains, are luxury labels selling a European fantasy? Here's more on what's really going on.
In the glamorous world of luxury fashion, where elegance and exclusivity reign supreme, a new kind of catwalk drama is stealing the spotlight. And no, it's not happening in Paris or Milan. It's happening on TikTok.
You know who is producing high-quality accessories for those luxury brands like Chanel, Estée Lauder, L'Oreal?
Courtesy Chinese factory workers and business owners who've had enough of staying backstage.
Your made in Italy Gucci 80% come from Chinese factory. They just
Forget cryptic press releases. This saga is being told through bite-sized videos that pack a mighty punch.
More than 80% of the luxury bags in the world are made in China.
One TikTok video by now viral @SendBags2 claims that a whopping 80% of your beloved made in Italy or crafted in France bags are actually made in China. Yes, China.
The bags will appear at their boutiques as made in Italy or made in France.
The video, which has been viewed over 10 million times, features a man spilling the luxury tea.
Do you recognize this style, this bag? Of course you do. For the past more than 30 years, we have been the OEM factory for most of the luxury brands around the world. Gucci, Prada, Coach, Louis Vuitton, you name it.
And apparently, while they stitched and polished with Swiss watch precision, the big brands cashed in and took all the credit. This led to a wave of other creators singing the same song as @SendBags2.
if your hammer says made in China, does it feel cheaper? No, that's not quality issue. It's luxury brand washing.
We will always be the best OEM factory for luxury brands. Why don't you just contact us and buy from us?
The creator behind @SendBags2 claims that when a Western brand tried ghosting China due to geopolitical tensions, they ran straight into disaster. Outsourcing elsewhere? Total flop. Inferior quality, slower timelines, and sky-high costs had them crawling back faster than a cancelled influencer. Interestingly, these Chinese manufacturers reportedly work under non-disclosure agreements. So a Chinese resident may be making your $1,000 Gucci bag, but they cannot say that out openly, up until now. But wait, don't toss your Birkin in the bonfire just yet. While TikTok may be flooded with claims, fashion insiders and regulations are side-eyeing the drama. US and EU laws around labeling aren't just fussy, they are practically forensic. Made in Italy and made in France require rigorous processes. From material sourcing to final assembly, everything has to happen on the home turf. Take Hermes, for example. The Rolls-Royce of handbags and footwear isn't flirting with Chinese outsourcing, or this is what they claim. They say their bags are crafted in quaint French workshops by artisans who train longer than some doctors. One reportedly has to complete a 5-year course to get the certification to make a Birkin bag. From leather tanning to final stitches. Hermes says it keeps it strictly French, and each bag is authenticated with artisan codes because, of course, even your handbag needs a passport before shipping off. As for Prada, Miu Miu, Saint Laurent, Gucci, and Dior, They say that they are all stationed comfortably in Italy or France, mostly within leather-loving Tuscany. But with these TikTok creators claiming a different story, the doors for speculations, rumors, and doubts are now flung open. Are these luxury faves phoning their products from the East or not?
Even Chanel, Fendi, Louis Vuitton.
But not all luxury brands are created equal. There are 200 plus brands floating in the luxury pool. And only 70 to 100 are actually basking in the high-end limelight. The rest? Well, who knows where they are stitching what, or what counts as substantial transformation.
And that's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Greeting you with aloha and